What's up, everyone? In this video, we have some big news related to NVIDIA, some big earnings for this week, Palantir stock, SoftBank and Uber, and some other important things you need to know. In this video, we're also going to be covering a couple of good setups for the rest of the week. But Tom, looking at the market overall today, we did see stocks pull back slightly as the market is just a little bit overextended to the upside.
Yeah, it is. It's just a little bit overextended right now. The SPY, like you said, ended up closing red. We actually had a really good opening, though, this morning, and the SPY was doing very well despite NVIDIA coming out with those preliminary numbers, which really drove the market, in my opinion, down throughout the day. You know, we saw a lot of big tech stocks start to fall off, even like Apple, Microsoft, stocks like that started pulling back down into the red the more that the day went on. Microsoft actually closed almost down 1%, which is pretty big. And Mike, of course, across the board, as we know, some of the growth stocks did pretty well today, like DraftKings actually closed up in the green. But yeah, these bigger tech stocks like NVIDIA took a pretty big hit. It even spilled over into like AMD and a few other chip stocks, which were down as well. But this NVIDIA news is pretty big. They pretty much revised their second quarter revenue numbers. So they came out with preliminary numbers here, Mike, of $6.7 billion versus an outlook of $8.1 billion. That is obviously a pretty bad, I'm not going to say miss because, like I said, it's just preliminary numbers, but this is a pretty bad forecast nonetheless. And they said this was pretty much driven by weaker gaming revenue. And when I look down here through the numbers, Mike, that gaming revenue was $2.04 billion, down 44% sequentially and down 33% year over year. So that's definitely not good. I will say their data center revenue was up 61% year over year, but I guess that gaming revenue obviously is where most of that comes from.
Exactly. So for those of you who don't know, NVIDIA is like one of the most powerful and biggest market moving stocks out there. It's a giant tech company. And according to Thinkorswim, they are set to report earnings on August 24th after market close. So when you have NVIDIA come out weeks ahead of time like they are now saying, hey guys, we're actually expecting to miss revenue by well over $1 billion this quarter. Clearly, it's not good news, and that's why the stock's down 6%. But the thing is, by NVIDIA falling, it doesn't just drag down NVIDIA. It has a big influence on the market overall, and just especially tech stocks overall. So AMD even fell a little bit too, but either way, it's just important to note because NVIDIA is a pretty big and powerful company.
Yeah, they are. And it's never good to see them obviously have these shortfalls like this. And the gaming revenue being down is kind of surprising me, Mike. I mean, I guess coming off of the pandemic, it's not overly surprising, but still year over year, I would have thought compared to last year, it would have been a little bit better with those numbers there. But yeah, I'm curious to see like exactly what's going on with their gaming revenue. You know, like whenever these earnings come out, I'm curious to see if it's mainly due to like maybe like graphics cards or exactly like what part of that is obviously down. But they deal with so much stuff, Mike. I went on their website here. They do stuff with gaming, like we said, servers, the cloud. They get into all types of stuff here. You can see right here, NVIDIA and Google help enterprises build AI faster. They're really getting into AI, as we know. But yeah, they really drive that tech sector today. That QQQ, Mike, was looking pretty brutal there at the end of the day. Almost down, obviously it was down a little bit more than SPY, but almost pulling down to the low of Friday there, which was down around 318.50, which I will watch as a nice support tomorrow. But yeah, that market was really shaky today. And like we said at the beginning, it was a little bit overextended to begin with. So in my opinion, it's not all, you know, obviously NVIDIA's fault why the market's down, but in the end though, it was definitely a big factor.
Absolutely. So I bet a lot of people are looking at the market right now and saying, you know what? It's been a great past couple weeks. You know, what does this week look like, right? And the way I look at it is right now the S&P 500 is up around 14% from its recent lows. That is one of the biggest pops out there. Most of the time when we see the market bounce this much, we almost always see some sort of calming effect or at least a tiny pullback. So over the next couple days, I am not overly bullish. Anything's possible. The market can continue higher, but you have to ask yourself the question, is it worth the risk playing the market to the upside right now in the short term? To me, it's not, right? But That doesn't mean I think the market's going to crash by Friday either. The main thing I'm looking for is just a slowdown in, like just slow down and a slight pullback, or at the bare minimum, just flat movement over the next couple days. Because on top of the market being up quite a bit over the past couple weeks, we have a lot of these tech stocks and growth companies that are up anywhere from 20 to 80% over the past couple weeks from their lows. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. Like, look at even DraftKings. DraftKings at one point was almost up 100% over the past couple days, obviously off of those recent lows. So these stocks have really been ripping back to the upside. Even some of these, I guess, like reopening plays like Boeing, even airlines like CCL, RCL, stocks like that have even been on some pretty big uptrends as of late. So, yeah, really across the board, we've seen a nice recovery. Like you mentioned with SPY here, obviously, it's just a little bit overextended. As far as some big levels here to the downside, Mike, I'm really going to eye up $400, I feel like, over the next few weeks. To me, that seems like a pretty big area of support down here. I'm going to go ahead and make a nice area here on the chart. But $400 is obviously going to be pretty key. And then there's a few other levels coming up too. Like I see 407 as being a huge support. And then I even see another one down here around like 403. So there's definitely a lot of levels to look out for over the next few days, guys. And in our opinion, the SPY might start falling down into those. So it might not be a bad time to start grabbing some puts. And who knows, Mike, we even saw UVXY start to go kind of crazy today.
Yep. All righty, Tom. What else is important that we need to know about?
Yeah, so obviously NVIDIA was a pretty big stock here that was down early this morning, but we did have Palantir obviously fall down as well, and they reported earnings that obviously weren't too bad. But like you mentioned, Mike, stocks are just up so much recently that it's very hard to continue up with that type of momentum. And Palantir's earnings, they were good, but they did not wow by any means. So looking at it, you can see here early on, it says their shares fell 14%. They actually missed slightly on EPS. They came in with a loss of 1 cent versus a positive 3 cent expectation. Their revenue did beat by just around $2 million. They came in at 473 versus 471.3 million expected. And their year-over-year numbers were actually good here. So their fourth quarter revenue was up 26% year over year. Their commercial revenue grew 46%. So they did have some good numbers here. And then they also said some pretty good statements here. Their CEO said that there's been a lot of strength in the United States, and they continue to see pretty much everything continuing to run smooth. And they even say that they're looking to obviously continue to lead their sector here with obviously some of their software and stuff. So it sounds pretty good, Mike, but nonetheless, though, the stock is down. Like I said, just couldn't wow the market enough.
All right. Then another big piece of news that we have to pay attention to are just the rest of the earnings coming up over the next couple of days. Earnings season is starting to wind down just a little bit, but we do have a couple of big companies set to report.
Yeah, we do. So tonight, Upstart reported. We have Blink actually reporting too. Lemonade. I mean, we actually had a couple tonight. And then tomorrow before open, we have Spirit Airlines. Watch out for that one. That one's going to be pretty funny. Norwegian Cruise Lines, Ralph Lauren. After close, Mike, here's the big ones. Coinbase, Roblox, The Trade Desk, Unity, Wish, Win. I mean, Celsius. Tomorrow's going to be a pretty big day. Celsius just got bought out by Pepsi too. So we're actually that Pepsi took a stake in them. My mistake. But nonetheless, it's going to be a big week, Mike. We have some big ones here. Disney later on. So yeah, seems like an action-packed earnings week again.
All righty. And then do we have any other big news that we need to know about?
Yeah, I will say, SoftBank did actually have some pretty big news today where they dumped their entire stake in Uber. Now, I will say, guys, I don't necessarily think that this is going to be too bearish for Uber here. I think it's more of bad news for SoftBank because SoftBank has been reporting some pretty big losses and stuff, especially in their investments and stuff that they've been doing. They're pretty much kind of like a Berkshire Hathaway, and they obviously take a lot of investments. So it says they invested in Uber in 2018, but last year they actually sold a third of their stake in them. Now they offloaded the shares that they still had left. So like I said, Mike, seems more of like a negative thing towards SoftBank than Uber, but it is still interesting that they picked Uber of all things to unload. And Uber is pretty overextended in the short term. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised it's not down a little bit more. I was kind of expecting retail traders to get pretty freaked out by that.
Yep. All right, and then the last thing is the economic data calendar. Wednesday will be the start of important economic data points. 1 hour before open on Wednesday, we have inflation data set to release. The last CPI report came in at 9.1%. That is terrible. So clearly, we are hoping for a reading lower than 9.1%. Right now, it looks like that is expected too, which is good to see. But just keep in mind, Wednesday, 1 hour before market open, we are going to get some very important inflation data. We also have some PPI inflation data coming out on Thursday, an hour before open. And then on Friday, we have a preliminary reading of the consumer sentiment report. That comes out at 10 a.m. Eastern time. But here's the economic data, I guess you could say schedule for the week. Keep it on your radar.
Yeah, and with the market being a little bit overextended right now, if that inflation data stays higher, around maybe 9.1%, or obviously comes in a little bit higher, that could maybe scare the markets a little bit, and we could end up seeing maybe a bit more of a pullback come in. But nonetheless, that's going to be a big thing here coming up this week. Hopefully, we can see the market at least hold its ground through some of these events. Obviously, it might pull back naturally, but hopefully these events don't have too big of a factor on the market here. I'm really worried about that CPI data, Mike. Obviously, everybody keeps their eyes on that, especially the Feds and everyone. And of course, later this month, we're going to have another FOMC meeting. So that's going to be fun coming up too.
Alrighty. Well, with that being said, Tom, it is time for the momentum plays. With the first one, we have Fiverr potentially to the upside.
FVRR, yeah, this one actually closed up right around highs today. Go ahead and make them break above 42.70.
All right, with the next one, we have SWBI.
Smith & Wesson, yeah, it was good to see these guys up today too. Make them break above 14.35.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Roblox, but to the downside.
Yeah, poor Roblox here started pulling back big at the end of the day. Go ahead and make them break down below 48.75. If they break that in pre-market, then look at that low of day there. It's kind of like right around 48, or I should say 48 even.
All right, sounds good. So we are watching Roblox for a potential day trade to the downside tomorrow, only if it breaks below the level Tom listed. And then we are watching Smith & Wesson and Fiverr for potential day trades to the upside tomorrow, only if they break above the levels Tom listed. But we also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, New to Mo in the StockedUp Discord. You've been in the chat for over 2 years now, and you're still pretty active. So huge shout out to New to Mo. Thank you so much for your activity and being a great member of the chat. Tom and I really appreciate you. But Tom, heading into tomorrow, what are some of your favorite setups that you are watching?
Yeah, there's obviously some pretty big movers in the market today. One of my favorite ones, Mike, is actually Boeing. I noticed today they had some pretty big moves in the middle of the day, so I'm going to keep my eyes on them. They've been obviously up a lot lately from their recent lows, so I'm going to keep my eyes on them for a bit of a pullback. You can see there's a bit of a double top going on up here right around, like you could say like 172. So that's a pretty big area of resistance up there. I'm going to mark it on the chart. Maybe we'll be able to come back up into there, but like we said, we're kind of leaning to the downside over the next couple days, and I kind of feel like that Boeing here could end up pulling back down and maybe filling that gap here back to the downside. So definitely going to keep my eyes on this one. It's at a pretty big spot of resistance nonetheless. Of course, I'm going to keep watching NVIDIA too. That's going to be a very big one over the next couple days, I think. Hopefully it can start to hold its ground and recover, but it's not looking too good with that bad news that came out today with those preliminary earnings numbers.
Gotcha. All right. Well, guys, if you're new, make sure to subscribe. We post brand new videos every single day, and make sure to let us know what stocks you are watching down below in the comments. Sometimes we cover the stocks you're watching in the next video. So definitely let us know. We're definitely seeing some interesting momentum across the board right now, and we're set for a big week. Thanks for watching.